Heather Morris. I'm the managing director of a talent accelerator called Founders, as you know.
Yeah.
Background in the very shortest way possible. I'm Canadian. I've spent my career basically looking for the best founders and helping them grow and scale and unlock challenges. So whether that was at the investment bank, where I helped early stage tech companies in Canada raise capital, to moving over to JP Morgan, where I ran an emerging private company coverage group, where we were knocking on garage doors all over the valley looking for the best startups and trying to help them with the assets of the firm, while at the same time doing the big deals like working on Facebook and Netflix and Dropbox, but always really tightly linked with founders. And then moved over to a client of mine where my job was what is our strategy long term and where are we going, but also how do we get there, which was largely through M&A and investing. So again, I was meeting 25 founders a week, trying to figure out who were the best ones and how do we help them scale. So, largely speaking, I'm someone who's worked with founders for 20 years and tried to unlock problems for them.
Okay, so what does actually Founders do?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a little bit different to your normal accelerator. So we were founded out of the premise that the co-founding team is actually the strongest determinant of startup success.
Yeah.
So more than anything, the strength of those two people working together, getting through problems together, and being able to scale and work on something that they are uniquely qualified to work on for a particular reason. On top of that, we believe that talent is evenly distributed, but access to opportunity is not. And so what we've done is we've created a place for people to come and start a company and effectively democratize access to entrepreneurship as a career option for anybody who wants to come and do it. So that's the high level of what we're trying to build. But what is it actually? So we start with a 12-week program. We have about 40 people in a cohort. Half of them are technical, half of them are commercial, and they form into teams, work through problems, and then pitch us at the end of 12 weeks for a €100,000 investment. The companies that get investment then move into a phase 2, where we're helping them get their first customers, get investor ready, and start to think about raising those VC and angel checks.
Well, for me, I remember years ago I was at a conference and people were talking about startups, and there was people there in the room, and I was looking, how many have got the same skill set? So I'm thinking, are you Jobs or are you Wozniak? And if you're both Jobs or both Wozes, you're not going to last, because you need one of each to be able to be successful.
Yeah, 100%. And so many times, people love starting businesses with their mate that they sat next to in college, or someone they've known for a long time and feel comfortable in the relationship. But you really have to look at that skills gap between, are you two in a box trying to do all of the same jobs and having to suss out and figure out in between? Or are each of you at that stage when capital is so tight and critical, are you able to solve for very different things but do so in a way that overlaps in a nice package? Yeah,
because I felt that when Jobs wasn't founded Apple, Jobs knew enough about tech to say what could be done, but he couldn't actually build it himself properly. Exactly. Because you could go and tell Woz, like the first Apple they made, 8 chips, make it smaller. So then it took 4 chips. Yeah. And he kept pushing Woz to the limit, but he knew what could be done.
Yeah.
And also, he could go and sell to a layman and tell them what it does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you and this is why we're so focused on making sure that the team is a technical person and a commercial person. Not to say that there aren't anomalies where 2 of 1 can work really well, but in a very intense 12-week process, you sort of need to have these building blocks in place in order to move really, really quickly.
And also, I feel you've got to have somebody who can deal with the Penny Sheldon in the room. They know basically, kind of Penny get this, kind of Sheldon get this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've taught them how to divide and conquer, and they're very, very good at doing that. We also make them do all of the most awkward conversations you can imagine, because they've just met these people for the first time. They haven't, sat next to them for 20 years. So, how much money do you have in your bank account?
Yeah.
And if this goes sideways, what will we do? And, are you open to moving to the US if that's where our market ends up being? And, they come back from those conversations a little bit red-faced, but equally a stronger team for having done it.
Yeah, because the worst thing is, if you don't want to move, then basically why you're in this, because entrepreneurs have to be able to travel on short notice.
Hmm. Yeah, and it depends on obviously on the company where the market's going to end up being, or but understanding the flexibility of that person up front.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like marriage counseling, right? You don't go get married before you've decided you both want to have kids, and what is the rest of your life going to look like. And obviously you can't plan for everything, but understanding where that person is at a deep core personal level is so important, because you might spend the next 10 years building with them.
Yeah, and also you realize that when you got a company set up and it's been invested by other people, they won't invest if your market's only Ireland.
100%.
So
yeah.
if you're not willing to move to America, and I always look at that, I think of Ireland as a small state of America, and it's a test bed. If it does well in Ireland, then it will do well elsewhere.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes, as people in this space, we feel like we're fighting a bit of an uphill battle, coming from a smaller market and trying to scale and prove to the US and the UK and beyond that there is capacity for scale here. I was talking to one of the top VCs in the US yesterday, and he was one of the early investors in Mana.
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't invest in Mana despite the fact it was in Ireland. I actually invested because it was in Ireland, and because of all of the regulatory and so on that they're going to have to figure out over the years. Doing that in a small country will make it much easier for them to be successful. So we should think about what are the assets of this country that do allow entrepreneurs to be really successful here, and how do we leverage that to our advantage?
Well, also the fact that when you leave Ireland to go to America, you can get customs clearance at the airport, which helps. And also the flight distance between here and America isn't that much. And we have English as our main language, which is helpful, and also we're highly educated too as well. And Americans will, companies like that.
Yeah, 100%. And this is what, we're on the road fundraising ourselves, because we need to raise a fund to keep the Talent Accelerator going. And people love the fact that all of these multinationals have set up shop here over the last 20 years, and they've trained up really, really strong talent. And so there is a belief that there is strong talent, and people have always sort of wondered, why aren't there more people coming out of these multinationals and starting companies? And we are actually providing a pathway to do that.
Because years ago it was Apple and Microsoft who first came here, and then others like Digital was sadly gone, and then Intel. And this is going on, and IBM and other guys are here now. And
now that we have our own unicorns starting to come out, the amazing thing that happened in the US very early on, and now there's tax structures and so on that are available in the US that make this easier, but we won't talk about tax and get our listeners quite bored. But historically, you've had these companies like PayPal, where you've had the PayPal mafia. They've made money on their first thing. They've gone off and started their own things. And then the people in those companies go off and start their own things, and they're investing back into their friends and family that have come through that, that ecosystem. So now as we're scaling up our own unicorns here, hopefully we'll start to see some of that flywheel happening, where there's more homegrown unicorns and scaled companies that can build and stay here, because the capital is here and the talent is as well. Because
years ago, typically you had to go to America. But now it's kind of changed in that you don't need to do that. It helps to have market there. But if you have headquarters in Dublin or anywhere in Ireland, it's good. 100%. And so many of the companies are trying to come here anyway. So it's not this anomaly that you're in poor little Ireland. It's actually it doesn't really matter where you are anymore. And I guess because now we're in a remote world working wise, that helps as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps with hiring, and nobody needs to be sitting next to each other. Although we do, for our own program, obviously our first 12 weeks are, you must sit next to this person, because actually they're meeting for the first time, and they're making that commitment to stay together working for the next 10 years.
And how are you going to know if you're successful? It's like basically a TV show where you don't meet the bride until the day, and then you get married. And then
the divorce happens, right?
And then the rest of the show goes on for like season, talking about who will stay together. Married at first sight, for example. And I'm thinking, if you're a startup and you meet your founder on day one, and then the rest of the time remotely, it's not going to work. Because you got to know their quirks. And how they can reckon. If you're in a stressful situation, how to handle stress. How do you handle stress? How do you make sure that you're not always going to be at each other's throats? So we actually because that's part of our core thesis. We very heavily optimize for making sure that co-founding pairing is very strong from the beginning.
So we had teams actually come in week one and say, well, I already know who I want to work with. We said, great, but you're going to break up with them today and you're going to work with someone else for the next 24 hours and then someone else after that and someone else after that. And so we do these series of 24-hour sprints because you might think you've got sort of your optimum path, but you can really see the difference between the teams when you're working with somebody that you'd like to go to the pub with.
Yeah.
They kind of go from here to here, A to B in one day. And then you work with somebody who on paper you may have never even thought to sit down next to. And suddenly, it's exponential in 24 hours, and then you go, oh wow, this feels different, and well, I'm still going to go to the pub with that guy or girl. I want to work and build a company with this person.
Because going to the pub with somebody is like going for banter.
Yeah.
And when you're doing business, banter isn't the most important thing. It's can you get on?
Yeah.
And how will you survive when you're both sober and not drunk?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
when you go to a pub, the main thing is you're going there to have a good time, but also have a few drinks. And when you're in business, drinks isn't the main thing at all.
No, exactly. So we spend a lot of time making sure that, even do you work late, do you work early, how do you like to respond to emails, all of that stuff is really spent a lot of time on up front.
Yeah.
And we've had really great success with the companies coming out of the program. Just 2 days ago, one of our companies called InSpec announced they raised €1 million from Sure Valley Ventures and Delta and Plug and Play and a handful of others, really strong angels in that round. And they would have met on the program. And they worked with a bunch of different founders, and once they got together, they were flying. And we're so proud of the success that they've had because having met in September of last year, started working on their company together, call it November, and now to already have raised that much capital, and even every time they put up a job posting, they get hundreds of applications because what they're building is so unique and critically needed. And they're the absolute right two people to be doing it. So it's great to see some of the success stories coming out the other side.
And what are they building, if you can say?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So they are building basically middleware for LLMs.
Yeah.
So if you're an engineer and you're trying to, and actually we saw some of the pitches yesterday talking about the same issue. If you're an engineer and you're trying to build on top of an LLM, you could spend days, weeks, months even trying to figure out what are the correct prompts in order to get to the outcome I'm looking for here, and make sure that there's no hallucinations, that the accuracy is correct. And I mean, you're seeing even the last few days where Google's telling people to commit suicide and eat rocks. Like they obviously haven't tested their AI well enough. And so what Raman and Apoorv have built is the tech that will actually go and run all of those simulations and come back with, here's how you do it, and rather than spending months trying to test and coming out with something that may or may not work, you can spend minutes or hours coming up with something that does.
Because I think that's very important, because I've got a friend of mine who does, for a hobby, he's a photographer. And last year he always takes photographs and writes a description of where he was, and last year he used Google Bard to write descriptions.
Yeah.
Everything was wrong. It didn't work at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, we're so new into this thing that is going to radically change the way that we all live over the next several years. And even the people who are building the stuff are still figuring out how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Right? And so where, I think they did really well with their capital raise, obviously for a lot of reasons, but in part because VCs have gotten really tired of hearing about, this kind of thin wrapper on top of OpenAI, where there's not a lot of tech. And because of the challenges of actually using that LLM and the hallucinations and so on, whereas Raman and Apoorv said, no, we're not doing that, but for all of those co-pilots that sit on top of OpenAI and everything else, we're going to build that middleware that sits in between that helps you actually use it correctly and use it well. And so it's a differentiated story and really, really strong tech, really strong team, and we're delighted for them.
Well, I think you might have the comings of a next unicorn.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a few of them in the herd there.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the full portfolio, but there's a couple more that will, there's one that's going to close their next round in the next couple of months. That is a growth platform for SMEs.
Yeah.
So there's a guy called Kingsley who's out of Google, and a woman called Aisling who comes out of Wayflyer. So, a multinational and an Irish unicorn.
Yeah.
And they're building this growth platform because, so Aisling was sitting in Wayflyer and looking at these startups and saying, how do we pick the ones that are going to grow, right?
Yeah.
And how do we know that those are the good ones? And what tech do they need in order to help them scale, right? And if we're going to lend them money to go spend on marketing, where are the problems? And at the same time, Kingsley was at Google working on SMEs and knew that Google actually was not capable of providing the right tools for an SME. And it's a very, very high percentage of companies, SMEs that come and use Google that actually stop using Google within the first year because it is so complicated.
Yeah.
And so they met on the program, they formed this absolute dynamite team, they've come up with an AI platform that does everything for you. And let me be clear, Google calls an SME a business that's doing below 50 million in revenue.
Yeah.
Like that is a gigantic company relative to the thousands, maybe millions of companies that are well below that, right? And so if you want to run a campaign, you're doing 100,000 a month in ad spend, but you don't have somebody to be updating it real time and making sure that you're actually leveraging arbitrage across different platforms and so on. Their tool does it automatically for you, and they've got loads and loads of people on their wait list getting ready to use the platform. They've got loads already using it, and they're very close to closing their round as well. So they're on fire.
It's good to hear that your program is going very well.
Yeah, and like I said, really, really strong teams. So delighted with the success so far.
Now, getting back to founders, give me some examples of outstanding founders, and also what makes one as well.
Yeah, so look, I think, having spent 20 years meeting founders, I could probably go on a list of names where you just play the music and walk me off the screen.
Yeah.
So, I won't go into, too deep into it, but, there's a wide range of people who, whether they're a founder that's left a company and started something themselves, right, from zero, to people who are just solving big problems within a company or outside of their current job. There's so many talented people that are thinking differently and trying to do something that is unique to the square box that we're kind of expected to live in, right? I've got a great friend called Michelle Dervin. She started a company called Skills Trust. She was in the US, she's Irish, she was in the US, she was working in ed tech, she was a VC at one of the big firms, came back here and decided she wanted to make a go of it herself. And she scaled the company, she raised about $1 million last year, and she's absolutely flying. And the thing about her, she's leaned into what her edge was, which was a whole career of working in ed tech and understanding what goes right and wrong and all of her network and so on. And so she's been able to scale that company very quickly. Obviously, everybody who's been through the program, I absolutely love and would name check. And we won't go too deep into that. But in terms of what we're looking for, because we are launching our recruiting in middle of June. So we're recruiting for our next cohort, which will begin in January of 2025. So what do we look for? It's a very unique set of skills and so on, right? So it's not just what does your LinkedIn say and what does your resume say, because actually a lot of the things that entrepreneurs do, they don't think of as being, LinkedIn relevant necessarily. So are you the best person in your company? Great. But are you also on the side tinkering and building and doing cool stuff and following a very non-linear path? It's actually quite interesting. You do often see people who are some of the best entrepreneurs are neurodiverse or ADHD or dyslexic because they just see the world in a different way. And we're all for that because, you need to be looking at things differently in order to be successful as an entrepreneur. We also look for people who've overcome big challenges because building a company is a gigantic challenge. And, for some of the people that we bring on, it's actually not going to be the worst thing they've ever gone through, right? And so that they've got that stamina to make it through when things are great and when things are hard as well.
Because I guess it must be tough for them if they've overcome one challenge.
Yeah.
Then, like years ago, I was in a course in the UK, and one of the courses I did was walking in broken glass.
Yeah.
So the guy said, we're going to walk on 10 feet of broken glass in the bare feet.
Oh, you actually did it?
I did it in the end. He said, can you do this? And I said, I want to do it. He goes, no. When it talks over, then I'll ask you again, because right now I'm not sure. So I did it, and in the end he signed the broken glass, and I've got it in my apartment.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, whenever you've got a problem or thinking about something that you're not sure if you can do, remember you walked in this broken glass, and it's signed and dated. So you think back to that moment. So if, for example, you're asking for your boss a pay rise, or something, and something that's very important, because you've done this, you can do anything.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I love that. And do you have the scars to prove it?
Yeah. Well, no scars at all, because it didn't get any. But I mean, I know it's like walking on hot coal.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that, but walking in broken glass, to me, I've done it. I wouldn't do it now again, but the fact that I've done that, and it's like these guys, they've gone through a tough challenge in their life.
100%.
They can do anything.
100%. And sometimes you have to remind yourself of why you are doing these things, right? And sometimes, going through some deep, dark moments in your life actually reminds you of why we're here and why we're living, and why it's important to try to make the world a better place for all of us. And whether making it a better place means building a sustainable company, or it means building a better sales tool to help the lives of all the people in those roles, or anything in between, it's all great.
Yeah, right? I feel if you've gone through a dark moment and you survived it, somebody up there wants you to do something.
Yeah.
And you're here for a purpose.
Yeah.
And you've got to live that purpose.
Yeah, and sometimes, it takes that darkness to help you see, where is the light.
Like how dark is my old friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're sticking to that, and then when you come through it all, everything is bright, and at the end of it you see a bright light and you've made it. And I think we all got purpose in life, no matter what it is, but if you've gone through something dark or really bad, or something happened to you that you weren't expecting, and then you come through it all, and you're still here, well then, you're here to do something very important.
Yeah, and having worked with so many founders over the years, I've had the privilege to be standing next to many of them in some of their best moments. And, they've just made, they've come from nothing and they've built generational wealth for themselves, or they solved a problem that they've put their passion and heart into, and those are really big moments. But you also, are the shoulder to cry on in the times when things don't look so good, and you're the one that's standing there saying, I believe in you and you can do this. And, as founders, we need to surround ourselves with people who build us up in those dark moments and, stick them through. And those are the people that you want to celebrate with when you get to the other side. Yeah,
hallelujah moment. Hallelujah, I've made it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like if you're going through a gospel church and everyone's going hallelujah and everyone's praise the Lord and you're all happy because you're in the moment.
Yeah. Well, we'll be singing hallelujah once we get them all to unicorn status and funded and out the other side. And I'd say the whole country will celebrate once we have loads of these companies coming out and making us proud.
Yeah, and also I guess it just shows what a good job you're doing. You managed to get to spot these guys, because that's a tough thing to spot who's going to be the next big thing.
Yeah, and we had over 500 applications to our first cohort, and I've said this a number of times. We picked the top 40. It was really, really difficult to pick that top 40 because it wasn't just like everybody and their dog applied. It was really, really strong candidates, and every time you go through another batch of applications, the bar gets raised a little bit more and raised a little bit more. And, we could have filled multiple cohorts with just those applications. Yeah. And I'd say if you went back a couple of years, people might have said there's not enough talent in Ireland for something like this. But, we're absolutely proving that wrong. And we've already got a really, really strong wait list of people who've registered their interest. So we're going to have another great cohort ahead.
Well, to me, it's like Wayne's World too. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to find more and more every year as you do this.
Yeah.
You're going to find it harder to pick and choose.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Right? So.
And talking about problems, how do you help founders that are saying solve problems? Besides the obvious problem of getting funding, and what other problems do you help them solve as well?
Yeah. So we say that we are, democratizing access to entrepreneurship as a career by removing obstacles. And so what are those obstacles? The main things are, one, I don't have a co-founder,
Yeah.
obviously. We help with that. And, a big piece of what goes into the work of this accelerator is that we do, we spent probably 4.5 months just interviewing and going through applications and picking. And then we've assembled all of these people in one space that are amazing and want to start a company at the same time, right? Those two things don't always match up. So we help you find the co-founder. We pay them a monthly grant, which is not refundable. They get paid so long as they're there. So for 3 months, they're getting a bit of money at least to keep the lights on at home, right? And so it's moving, that last little bit of, will I leave my job? Can I still pay my bills? So that is a big hurdle. And then the third one is the network, right? And so, where some people may have already had a big network and access to, what you need in order to start a business, most people don't. And, it's actually particularly for women and minorities who may not have been, brought into some of these networks or are there but are in much smaller numbers. We're providing access to the full Dogpatch network. We can talk about what Dogpatch is if that's helpful, but the full network of 10 years of Patrick Walsh building out this ecosystem both here and abroad. So whether they're doing customer discovery and they're trying to figure out, is there a real hair on fire problem here that I can go and solve? Or they are trying to find people to fund their business and bring in angels. Or, what we do most critically is we're actually providing very surgical mentorship to each of these companies. So once they say, I want to work, in a med tech company, or I want to do a fintech, or I want to do something else, we have some of the top entrepreneurs in the country and abroad that have already done this and seen the space and are experts and can actually sit down, and we'll spend time weekly with them and say, no, here's where, here's what's coming around that corner. So you don't have to have the, go through those same mistakes. So, if you're thinking about starting a business, and, there will be people out there who say, I don't need a program to start a business. But imagine you were starting a company and you suddenly had access to thousands of people around the world that you didn't know, that you might just be doing a cold LinkedIn outreach to, that you can get as part of a program like this that can just accelerate what you're able to do.
And also, I guess, because you're in a building, in Dogpatch Labs, surrounded by entrepreneurs and startups, they're going to help you. So if you get a query, they might go, oh, I solved that problem last month. This is what I did.
Yeah, 100%. It's so funny when the guys and girls are doing the customer discovery, they actually get kicked out of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn thinks that they're spamming the system because they're reaching out to so many people. But you just hear them in there and somebody goes, oh, hey, I'm trying to reach, somebody with this title at this kind of company and this. And someone else goes, well, my mom does that, you know, or my cousin, or... and so, having people in the room actually is quite important for that kind of stuff because of the sort of engineered serendipity of bringing all these people together. But yeah, without that, you are just kind of staring into the abyss on your own. And equally, having spent a decade in California helping startups, you go into any coffee shop, pub, library, anywhere you go, people are talking about, well, I just got this term sheet, and what does that mean? Or how should I think about options? Or, is this VC investing in this kind of stuff right now? Do they have money, right? And so you're picking all of this stuff by osmosis, where, here you kind of, you don't get that necessarily unless you come to a place like Dogpatch or, these conferences and so on. But, there's less people who are, out and about and have seen it before and have, the cousin that failed that thing and, started that other thing, and I'm going to join that. So having community around it is such a big deal.
Well, 12 years ago, I did a postgraduate diploma in NCI and cloud computing, and one of our subjects, we used a product called Twilio, which was basically used for mobile communication stuff. And when we did that, they opened up an office in Ireland in Dogpatch Labs. And I was thinking, why are they there? They're very well known in America. Why are they in Dogpatch Labs? And I guess I wanted to just do, when I saw they went in there, then I've been in there numerous times and I felt they chose the right place.
So in a very funny 3 degrees of separation in Ireland. So my husband was actually the guy at Twilio who opened that office in Dogpatch Labs. So I know the background there. So he was one of the first finance employees that the company had, and saw it all the way through the IPO, which was obviously a great experience for him. His MO when we were in the US was, I got to open the Irish office is like my number one priority. And then he would, sit on the boards here and come back regularly. But he wanted the team here to be deeply immersed in the ecosystem. Yeah. And, you could go to a WeWork, or you could go to, any kind of office pod space, but you wouldn't be surrounded by that network. And, as an American company coming into the country, you want to have, that access and not just be, an island unto yourself. So, they had a good run at Dogpatch. And obviously scaled and grew up and out. But we have amazing companies that come through and set up. We have all the VCs come through and sit and want to meet the companies. And any given day there's very cool people to run into. So it's nice to actually be back in the office. Didn't think I'd say that.
Yeah, now you work with NDRC as well, which is great, because I've been in a few of their programs over the years. And NDRC is great. Now that you're working with them, you actually got another network to link in with as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we did our demo day along with the NDRC Accelerator last time. So it was our biggest ever demo day, which was amazing. We had, I think, 16 companies present. Yeah. We were a little bit worried it was going to be too much for the crowd, sitting through. Yeah. We shortened them up to 3-minute pitches, which kept it going. And there's the big VC dinner was on that night, so we thought everybody was going to kind of bolt at the end. But actually, everybody stuck around. We had 400 people in the room, and it was just such energy and excitement. And you come out of those things feeling so optimistic about the country and what we're able to accomplish here.
I guess it's like coming out of a televangelist service.
Yeah.
You're all on a high. You say, I've seen the new God, or you see something.
Yeah, we're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, you've seen something that Jim Jones would have seen. You're going, yes, I've drank the Kool-Aid. I'm impressed, because that's where you see the next big thing.
Yeah, 100%. And it's there's a woman called Noor Swede who started a big VC in Dubai. Yeah. And I think it's called Global Ventures. And for all of the capital that is in Dubai and the surrounding areas, there wasn't a strong sort of VC presence. And, there was lots of companies getting started but not getting funded, which was strange. Yeah. And so what they've built in Dubai is actually it's called the Museum of the Future. Yeah. And it shows off all of this cool tech that's upcoming and what that might look like 10, 20, 30 years on. And it was such an interesting idea, which is until you can see it, you can't believe it. Yeah. And if you can't believe it, then you're not going to put your capital into it, right? And so the more exposure that we can get to more different types of people to sort of get excited about the startup ecosystem here, the more we can believe that we can actually be one of these countries like Estonia that punches above our weight class and is able to mint unicorns every single year. Yeah, because if you're seeing, it's like Smithsonian Institute in America, where you go there, you're seeing the tech of the past and what we had, but if you can see the tech of the future, that's what people would like, because then you can think, I can invest in that, I can believe in it. And if you're trying to sell a product to somebody, if they can see it in person, they'll go, oh, AI isn't that bad. Yeah, 100%. And I think there are people that think AI is just another social media tool. Yeah. But actually, I think most of us know that it is going to revolutionize every single we touch, see, and do, right? And so, how do we, even the people that are building it, I don't know if they know the full extent of what it's going to be. There's probably a plan, but how do we get people thinking more about the future? And what the best entrepreneurs do is they don't build for a problem that we have today. They build for the problem that will be hurting us all in 10 years' time. And so hopefully either they have that solution by the time it is the big problem, or they've changed the outcome so that we're not experiencing that problem at the magnitude that we would have otherwise. Well, to me, when I did my cloud computing course, at that time people weren't sure what the cloud was. And they didn't understand that. I remember it was a county council down in Kerry, he was saying, sure, we're great for cloud computing, we've got lots of clouds over us, we're great for that. Didn't know what it was. And then suddenly as we all get smartphones, cloud computing is in our pockets. Yeah. And
I remember when I got an iPhone 4S, it had Siri. Now
Yeah.
Siri was very basic.
Yeah.
And the Siri we've got now is so advanced. So when you're getting a mobile, a smartphone or a smart device, wearable device,
Yeah.
it's now got AI built into it. So you're
Yeah.
getting used to it, and then before you know it, oh, I'm using AI already. I didn't know it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Obviously, ChatGPT and these new tools have come out and, they've made a massive difference to lots of different types of things that we use. But the reality is, most tech companies have been using machine learning and AI for the last 10 years, right? So it's not like every company needs to go and say, okay, we need to start thinking about AI. It's been part of the conversation. It's how do we use the new things that AI can do and use them to our advantage. And I think short term, it's not going to be as impactful, but in the next 5 and 10 years, there's going to be major changes in everything that we see and do. And I don't mean to say it won't be impactful, period. I mean that we're still figuring out how to use things, right? And hopefully Ram and Apurv help us use those things better and faster and with less hallucinations and so on. But we're still finding those right spots where they're going to have the biggest impact.
Because at the moment, if you're a company that's using cloud-based SaaS or PaaS stuff, you're not realizing that behind all that is AI.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, oh, they're using AI. Yes, you are, but the problem is the AI that you're using is their product, but surely you want to do it for yourself and have it on your own system.
Yeah, yeah. So look, we're it's funny when we had the people apply to the program last year. Anyone who was building in tech was like, I'm an AI engineer. I've been working in AI. And it's great because obviously we've developed a lot of AI-based companies coming out of it. But you wouldn't have had that 5 years ago. They would have just said, I'm an engineer, right? Even if they worked on machine learning or AI. So the lexicon of the types of roles and titles and so on that we have obviously changes every couple of years in the tech space.
And getting back to founders, what kind of tech areas are you investing in?
Yeah, look, we are right now, we have to be generalists, right? We're bringing in a pool of people, and what we're teaching them to do is to build into the thing that is their edge, right? And so they might have a market edge, which is, I know this space so well that I can see things that other people don't see, and I've got a unique insight. Or they've got a catalyst edge, which is, give me anything and I will make it better, faster, smarter, right? And then on the tech side, what do you know how to build and what can you scale quickly, and how do you leverage that technical edge in order to match with that person? So by its nature, we are not saying you must do X, Y, and Z. We are saying we think you are great and we want you to build the thing that you are going to be uniquely positioned to do that nobody else on the planet can do, right? So that being said, it is tech, right? So, I think we had someone apply for like a tattoo parlor or something last time, which is quite outside of, the type of thing that we would do in the program. But, it is thinking about, are they solving a problem that is going to be here in 10 years' time? Not just, are they solving a small, minute problem that, we might have here in Ireland but doesn't affect the rest of the world? So we're really focused on globally scalable, venture-backable enterprises, and of course a lot of that's going to end up being AI just based on where we are in the cycle.
Yeah, and I guess also quantum computing too is going to be big as well.
Sorry?
Quantum computing is going to get big as well.
Yeah, 100%. And so, I will say because of the type of program that we run, right, we're investing in team and idea. Yeah. And, by the time we make that investment decision, some of them have a bit of an MVP, but there's a scale of what you can and cannot build in 8 to 10 weeks' time. Now we've been very impressed with what the guys and girls have built, in that short amount of time. But there's a horizon you need to look at when we're thinking about what can we invest in and what gives us the best chance of success and hitting some home runs here.
Yeah, and I guess at times you've got to tell them the most important word is pivot.
Yeah. Well, look, we very much are trying to teach people to fish, right? And so we never actually say that's never going to work. Because what do we know, right? We're bringing in people who are experts in a space.
Yeah.
And so hopefully they actually do know better than us and can convince us that we're wrong if we don't think it's the right thing. But we are in the background saying, have you thought about this, or have you looked at that, or I know these types of investors are, investing in these types of things. And so, we've had actually people who've come in with an idea who, based on the program and what we've taught them, have figured out, actually, no, that's not going to work, and then I'm going to work on the thing that is my edge. And then you just see them flourish because they know the space, they know what the problems are, and they can actually go build something much quicker.
And I guess before we finish off, when's the right time for a founder to exit, and what is the step they should take?
Yeah, so I suppose it depends on what you mean by the word exit, and I know we're running out of time, so I won't belabor the point, but I think a founder really needs to consider what type of founder they are, right? Are they, Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, which is I'm going to start the business and I'm going to be there until the bitter end?
Yeah.
Or are they a serial founder, which is I have 1,000 ideas in my head and I need at least 50 of them to exist in the world before I die, and I want to go and keep doing this. And so for some founders, the idea of an exit is, I'm going to get this thing to a Series A or Series B, and then the professional, team who's done this before is going to go take it public, and then, because all I want to do is be that really early stage, 0 to 1 entrepreneur. There are other people who do want to be there till the bitter end, and thinking about an exit as M&A for example, is part of that realm of possibility. As well as if you are VC backed, these funds have to return capital to their LPs at a certain point, and so there's going to be pressure at some point to say, what are we doing here, right?
Yeah.
So when do you think about an exit? I mean, I suppose you should always be having conversations in your network and building towards what is the biggest, best thing we can do with this company, right? And, I never look at it as plan for selling the business. It's really more, if there are big companies in that space that are either competitors or working alongside you or potential partners, you should know them, right? They might be the people who want to buy you eventually, but you should know them because it's going to make your business better, right?
Yeah.
And, equally you should know where you are in the cycle with a VC, and is there going to be pressure at that point to either sell the business or recapitalize the structure so that they can get their capital out?
Yeah.
I think the best thing you can do as an entrepreneur to be ready for that, again, is building that network so that you have options when those conversations come, but also just building the best business that you can and being transparent with your investors and making sure your data is secure, because everybody's got a data breach at some point in their life cycle these days. It's just the way it works. And that you understand what's happening with your data and your legal and your documents are all together, because those are the things that slow you down. You might be all excited about a big transaction, and then suddenly you go, okay, you didn't file those forms right, or you don't have your shareholders agreement set up, or so on. So it's it's a little bit of getting through the boring stuff in order to be ready for that big exciting moment. And doing it at the right times, because obviously once you're in that very 0 to 1 stage, you're moving fast and breaking things more so than you are doing paperwork, hopefully. But you need to get to a point where all of that stuff is buttoned up and done really nicely.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I know there's some founders, people who are serial entrepreneurs, who once you get to Series A, they bow out, and there's other guys like Steve Jobs or Zuckerberg who want to become a unicorn and more.
Yeah, and it's really just, for those people who take it the whole way.
Yeah.
You can imagine, day 0 starting Apple, very different than, today, right? So do you have that skill set to continue on with the business, and does that still excite you? Some people will be yes and some no.
On that note, thanks for a great conversation, Heather, and have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks,
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.